Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Casen.
This is Kellan, and thank you for your patience, everybody. That's the first thing I want to say. What's funny, Casen, it feels like it's been it has been like well over a week since our last show dropped. We dropped a show last Wednesday. Due to circumstances, this is going to go out. Hopefully, you're someplace warm on your Saturday morning, wherever you
Yeah.
consume our content from. Casen, how you doing, my friend?
Good, good. I mean, we've got a decent amount of snow here. And so we woke up. Lots of schools didn't have class today, or school got canceled today for a lot of people in the area with the weather. But it's a great snowy January Friday.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, and I'll just get into this real quick. I for those who don't know, I live in the South, and it's the first time I've ever lived in the South for about half a year now. And it's interesting because this is the first time I've heard from various people up north, like yourself, among other people, family members and such, about the snowfall and seeing images and all that stuff. And I got none of that here, and it's just fascinating. It's still cold. Okay, I'm not in the deep South, but um, it's still pretty cold. I mean, it's hitting the teens and the outside, but no snow yet. So we'll kind of see what happens there. But it's just been a very interesting life experience for me. That being said, I think people are gonna love what we're gonna do today. So much stuff happened right after our show dropped, including literally the day our show dropped last week. That Case and I are gonna open the show and maybe probably spend the bulk of the show on of the weeks, and we're gonna bring up anything we want in any way you guys all you all know that out there. I've been told by various people they love of the weeks. Well, most of this show is going to be of the weeks, as we recap not only the wild card weekend, but stuff that happened in sports throughout the news, stuff that happened in general, stuff that caught our attention. So yeah, we hope you enjoy it along with us talking about it. All stuff that Case and I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to each other about. So this is going to be interesting. Then of course we'll
Yeah.
predict the division round. We'll predict the division, and I began Echo. I don't know how much of it you got through, Casen. We'll talk about that at the
Yeah.
very end.
Yeah, we can touch on that.
So
Uh
why don't you start us off, man? What of the week do you want to give away
Yeah, I
first?
mean, this is, I mean, please bear with us as this is going to be kind of all over the place, but that there is one story and one story only that I would want to lead this show off of, and
How
that
about
is Dem Boys of the Week goes to the Dallas Cowboys.
I would like to also I would like to also present them with an award. My punchline of the week goes to the Dallas
Oh
Cowboys.
yes. Oh yes. Oh
I was going
yes.
to say destruction of the week had we done this earlier in the week, but no, they're the punchline of the week this week. It's been kind of amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is coming out on Saturday, so it's about a week old at this point. But yeah, as you know, Dallas Cowboys came out and just got annihilated at home by the Green Bay Packers, and the first year starter Jordan Love in his first playoff game, who has been kind of up and down all year. He's had flashes, and he came out and looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the league against this
Yeah,
supposedly really staunch Dallas Cowboy defense. Yeah, so Dak looked awful. Mike McCarthy looked completely over his skis. Um,
the whole place just
I
was
don't know.
stunned.
I
I
don't.
mean,
They were completely unprepared. I don't. They
I
were.
it
Yeah.
was it was
I don't
like
even.
they forgot how to play football. Like that's how bad this
Yeah.
was. I mean, they dropped. I mean, the Packers went in there and dropped 27 on them in the first half. That halftime score. I mean, they were showing everyone from Jerry Jones to fans. I mean, it was one of the most memorable playoff blowouts I've ever like upset blowouts I have ever seen in my life. And yeah, I mean,
The,
it's
the final score ended up 48-32, but it was never that close. I
no,
mean, they
no.
ended up like sort of scoring a few in the fourth quarter to like make it close
They got a garbage time
on
touchdown or
on
two.
paper, but it was 41-16 at one point. I mean, it was just completely a rout. It never felt like the Cowboys had any momentum to even try to come back. Like that game was over at halftime. Like it was
No,
over.
no, and honestly, everyone, you knew the Stephen A. Smith reaction was coming. I mean, he put a reaction out at halftime.
He was tweeting it. He was like, keep an eye on the score. Like I'm gonna be doing something.
I just love the pan in. It's just like here,
Yeah.
I'll do it from my angle, just the just the lean,
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that's probably going to confuse people that listen to our show. So I leaned out of
Yeah.
frame and I came back in. But on a topic here, I heard this. You're gonna like this. I heard a TikToker who is a Cowboys fan say this, just random person, not anyone like really famous on TikTok. Imagine that I own a really nice restaurant and I hire the best chef on earth that makes my restaurant world renowned, right? Like world renowned, best, internationally known. And then because I'm not getting enough attention, I fire that chef and bring in chefs since then, none of them recapturing the glory of that original chef. But my restaurant continues to get by because of the reputation that I set with that chef. That is the Cowboys for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Since Jimmy
I mean,
Johnson.
that's a very fair statement. And to be fair, here's the thing. So because of this, everybody assumed that Mike McCarthy was going to be fired on Monday. He
Right.
wasn't. He's not fired. Apparently he's coming back. And so, I mean, I actually give credit to Jerry on this one for seemingly not being a prisoner of the moment and like saying, look, Mike McCarthy's a good coach. I don't know what happened. I'll give him time to maybe change anything he needs to change.
That's true.
So
That's true.
I give Jerry credit that he seemingly learned.
They still had a great season. That's the thing. It's like, look, we got blown out in the playoffs in the first playoff, but I can't, like, how would I be if I, kind of going back to that mentality of what he's so criticized for. But let me make something very clear. I don't dislike the Cowboys, even sort of. I think it's funny when they lose simply because of their reputation. You know what I mean? America's team.
Yeah.
But let's face it, Casen. I mean, I'm almost 30 years old. The Cowboys have been what they are currently our entire lives. That's the brand of the Cowboys for me. And when they bomb out of the playoffs, it's always spectacular and it's always hilarious. I mean, objectively, don't you agree? I mean, it's like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's their brand. Like their brand is to win or come in second in the NFC East, make the playoffs, and maybe win a playoff game.
The best Cowboys team.
That is it.
The best Cowboys team that had the best chance of getting to the Super Bowl was the Dez no catch year. That when they lost in Green Bay. That's probably the best Cowboys team that has happened since we've been alive. And even then, I mean, they were flawed that. I mean, to this day.
Well, I mean, they've had some it's almost sort of spectacular at like how this just always seems to happen. I mean,
and then the Romo, you had the Romo no hold, Seahawks.
Yeah. I mean, you look back even onto the 2016 team, Dak and Zeke's rookie year when I think they won 13 games that year, and then there was, I think it was
I'm pretty sure that was
2
the
years
Dez
after
year.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they've had some really good teams, and I mean, they just can never seem to come ready to play in January. It's very weird.
It is strange. I want to shift though to the other side. The Packers came out and balled. I mean, that was like, and that's the old like dichotomy between those two teams. Like historically, remember I said on our show last time, crazy stuff happens whenever the Packers and Cowboys play each other in the playoffs, and usually the Packers win. And that's exactly what we got. What was the thing? But there's no part of me that saw like the Cowboys. I mean, the collection of quarterbacks that is left in the playoffs is actually pretty cool. Beyond the guys you expect to be there, like the two guys who are gonna play this Sunday, but we'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, credit goes to the coaching staff and Jordan Love for being able to come out and mentally like be honed in enough. Pretty much, I mean, he technically lost it, but Jordan Love had a perfect passer rating for the game. I apparently they put him in at the end of the game and he had an incomplete pass and lost the perfect passer rating, but he basically was an elite quarterback that day. I mean, something that we've seen flashes of, and so we've seen him sort of show that he can be that, but he hasn't really put it together long enough to consistently be that. And yeah, I mean, you've got everybody else in the NFC North really frustrated because they're like, okay, so here's the third elite quarterback that they've just grown on a tree.
Yes,
Like,
yes. Hats off to the. I will say also, hats off to the NFC East. Way to come out, everybody. Way to come out, Cowboys and Eagles.
yeah, yeah,
I will. Are you done on the Cowboys? Because I did want to shift. I want to give an absolute
yeah,
dog of the week.
yeah,
My,
absolutely.
that is my upset of the week, by the way. Packers over Cowboys. Great work out there. Um, my absolute dog of the week goes to really one guy, but really a collection of dudes, and it's Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. I'm
Mhm.
dead serious when I say this. When I say that the amount of storylines going into the game was incredible. I watched the whole thing, and just to see Detroit just like be the better team, like that we knew they are, and really back it up in their first home playoff win. Like in I don't know how long it's been. I knew the number the year earlier this week, but I forgot. Um, it was amazing.
31, 32, 31,
Yeah,
32, something like
like
that.
1930s, right? Um, they
1993,
or no,
I think it was
93. That's what it
93.
was. Not the 30s. I was thinking of something else. Sorry. Um, yeah, but they defeat the Rams with the storylines going in. You know, you got Stafford against Goff, and yeah, I mean, you talk about like low key. This is kind of probably one of the best trades for both sides in NFL history. The circumstances that sent these two quarterbacks to the opposite team. If you really think about this,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, here's my thing. Like, I I think the Lions won the trade. I mean, the Rams won a Super Bowl, I guess, but like when you look at it on paper of like everything that if you take away like that fact of it, the fact that like the trade technically got them a Super Bowl win, I mean the Lions were able to completely rebuild that roster and they added tons of talent around Jared and to the point where they're one of the best teams in the league right now.
they are,
And so and they were able to sort of fix the cap problem that Stafford's contract posed. And yeah, I mean it definitely worked out for both sides. I mean, Rams got a Super Bowl, Lions got roster management, and,
yeah, you
and
know,
I think it worked out.
I saw a video this past week, which well, one was about the young man who was seen crying as they hit the first down. They zoomed in
Mm-hmm.
on the fan who was crying. I saw it. I just want to shout out this guy. I forget his name, but he was he his I guess he's like 35, and his dad passed away when he was like 14, and his dad took him to as many Lions games as he possibly could. I guess his brother surprised him with those tickets, and they were they were right there on like the end zone side, and like for him, and he's like just the rush of emotions coming in, thinking about my dad, my brother, and just being able to hug each other and watch this live. I was like, that's what it's all about right there. I mean that is why we do this, and honestly, we'll get to it as well, but I don't think the Lions are done yet. We'll get there. But they showed out, they showed up, and man, they backed it up. And also, Ford Field was electric. It was awesome seeing Eminem on the sideline. The intro
Yeah.
when the intro was done by him, I was like, Lions by 50. I don't care. I don't care, man. Slim Shady's been waiting 50 years for this.
Wasn't there like I think they were talking about some like 80-year-old guy that was there too, that I think they said that he was at the last Lions championship game in the 50s
Yeah.
or something, and he had been to like all of the
I mean,
games since then.
for an organization that has been so downtrodden, like your Browns, honestly, just in the long run of history, and probably even worse because the Browns were at least good in the '80s, prior to the move. I just, they looked so good as an organization from top to bottom, like the entire evening, from the intro to who they had around to the people they showcased to the
Hmm.
atmosphere. I mean, they looked so good as an organization, and we know that place can get loud. As we jokingly called it at Bowling Green, Deut North, right? Um, I've jokingly said to people, I've marched at Ford Field in Detroit more than my own home stadium in Pittsburgh throughout back in my marching
Hmm.
band days. And it was just so good to see them on TV for everyone in Detroit and friend of the show James and everyone in Michigan, getting that playoff win, and now reaching for more, right?
Yeah, I mean,
But Dan
and
Campbell too also gets a Dog of the Week award.
yeah, I mean, and honestly, one of my favorite storylines is Dan Campbell was on the 0-16 Detroit Lions team.
I had
And
no idea that was a thing. I think but right before our last show, I don't know if we mentioned it in our last show or not, but I really this whole year that makes this whole reign of his even better. Um,
mhm.
someone,
and so and
yeah, go
so
ahead.
he
Go ahead.
he took the job because he was like, I've spent time here knowing how much this franchise means to the city.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to bring that back. Like I want to bring to the city what the people are craving,
Yep.
especially because he was there. I don't know for sure how long he was there, but he was there like, when the recession happened and he
Yeah.
saw all of the people, he saw such horrific economic state of that city at the worst time for that franchise.
The city,
Like like
the
like
city
like,
went
like
bankrupt in
the
13.
city
Yeah.
went bankrupt at the same time the team went bankrupt basically on the field. And he was just one of the most awful times to be in the city. And he was like, I want to do whatever I can to bring this city the joy that they've been begging
Yeah.
for 60 years.
And quite frankly, deserve.
Yeah, absolutely.
As hardworking Americans
And
in that
and,
area
and
of
I
the
mean,
country.
I will also
Mhm.
give credit to Sheila Ford Hamp. I
Yeah.
mean, there was tons of talk for years about, Dartha Ford and all the stuff about the problems with the ownership there. And it seems like they managed to, be smart about how they kind of reconstructed the front office. I mean, they got Brad Holmes and they brought in Dan Campbell, who, definitely seems like the right guy for now. And so this is the type of thing that changes the trajectory of your franchise. Like now they will be able to at least be competitive for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like they're no longer the laughing stock
No, they're
because you've proven you can. Like all you have to do is prove you can win there, and you're not going to be the basement of the league forever anymore.
no. I mean, I think for the foreseeable future, the NFC North runs through right through Detroit. um, and maybe the NFC. We'll see. We'll see what happens the rest of this.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's a very. I mean, the Packers could be good again with Jordan Love. Will like for a while,
Yeah, that could be your
but
new. That could be your
yeah, I
new
mean,
in that
it,
division.
it yeah, it could be like the Packers and Lions, like it was the Packers and Vikings for a while. So
Yep. Uh, I want to. Why don't you give another week, Casen?
yeah, my upset of the week is seemingly Nick Sirianni versus being fired. Um,
Yeah.
again, another coach that was seemingly already fired by the end of the day on Monday after the Eagles went out and just got destroyed by the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay.
Like we thought they would.
Yeah, like we kind of all
Like
thought they
both of
would.
us picked.
Um, the least surprising upset there. Um, everybody thought he was going to get fired, and he's not yet. Maybe I don't know.
I don't think
We'll
he's going to get
see.
fired at this point.
I mean, it sounds like Howie Roseman, the general manager, and Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, have asked him to prepare basically, new coordinators and who he would replace his entire staff
Present
with
a
because they
plan, basically. Like,
yeah, because
if you're going to
I think
stay, what's your
they're
plan? Yeah.
yeah, I because it sounds like they're gonna clean house and try and get some other people in there. So
Yeah. I want to go ahead and just address my team, and I want to give a press conference of the week goes to Mike Tomlin. By specifically when he walked directly out of the press conference after the Steelers lost to the Bills. When asked about his contract. Now, I want to point something out. Everyone's like, "Oh, he doesn't want to answer, about his contract." He started walking as the first word of the question began. I'm like, I don't think he even heard the contract part. Like, it's like, Mike, there's questions about, and then he started walking, and he just because if you hear the communications person say, anyone have anything else, and then there's like a pause, and Tomlin's like was kind of over it anyway. They just lost a playoff game, it's annoying. And then the question starts, and then he just dips. He's like, you know what? I'm done. So I will say to Tomlin's credit, who, by the way, Mike Tomlin has some of the all-time press conferences of all time, like moments in, sound bites, incredible. But he made it clear that he's not going anywhere. He's not stepping away from the Steelers. And he came back in like for his year-end press conference and said, "I'm in a much better mood today. I can answer some contract questions." That's like how he opened the whole thing. And so, anyway, I say all that to say Steelers lost to the Bills 31-17, but they didn't look like they didn't belong. And in a year that saw so much turmoil in the league, in the league, just with the Steelers, I watched that whole game. No, I mean, at one point that game was 7 points with like 5 minutes left, and I was like, if we make a defensive stop here, which I really did not expect, not without T.J. Watt, I'm like, Steelers could tie this up. And then the Bills ended up scoring one more time to, make it a 31-17 game. But, hats off,
Yeah, I mean,
off to the Bills.
I think that game was a lot closer than the Bills would have liked it to be. I think a lot of that, in fairness to them, was because I don't think the Bills got to practice like hardly at all.
Well, that's true.
Because of the weather situation in Buffalo. And
I jokingly said to someone, I don't think I like Josh Allen at all anymore. No, and that is a genuine joke. I'm indifferent, but I will say this: it is interesting to me that he did a fake slide and no one said a word. That's the one thing a lot of people in Pittsburgh have pointed out this week, and the reason they pointed it out is because when Kenny Pickett did that in a bowl game for Pitt football, the NCAA banned it like before the game even ended. If you recall that, they immediately made that a rule that you couldn't do that.
That was fairly absurd. Yeah.
I literally got up. I didn't get up, but I pointed at the screen. I'm like, wait, he just did a fake slide. And I'm thinking to myself, that's probably not illegal in the NFL, but like they're absolutely not going to call back Josh Allen on a fake slide. You know what I mean? But that's how he got that 60-yard touchdown run, because our guys were about to crush him, and he just did like a stutter step like he was going to slide, and then he went right by the guy, went on down the field, and I'm like, okay, so if you're just going to skirt the rules, then whatever. But it's not a rule. And they didn't make it. They're not going to make it a rule in the NFL unless that starts happening more often. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I do definitely remember that wasn't the ACC championship game, was it? Because I think it was Pitt and Wake Forest, but that
what, it might have been the ACC.
I think that was. Yeah, I think that was
in the ACC championship, because
it was.
You know what? Because Kenny didn't play in the bowl game for Pitt that year, I don't think. So
right.
They played Michigan State. Michigan State beat them. So yeah, that was Kenny Pickett's last college game. He did that, and they banned it immediately.
And I definitely remember that. Like the commissioner of the ACC came out of the NCAA came out and said that it was banned. Like by the next morning, it was literally, we cannot be letting this happen.
It was like 8 a.m. They were like, absolutely not. That is not going to be going over. But I'm telling you right now, if that starts to become a problem in the NFL, the league will have to do something. But they're certainly not going to react, because one of their golden boys right now did it and had an amazing Hall of Fame run. Whatever. Yeah. I'm like, sure, it happened to the Steelers. Whatever. Yeah. But
I mean, also because
we're quick to point that out. I'm like, oh, okay, so if you're just gonna fake slide, well then Josh Allen, go ahead, score on us, like whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's offense. I mean, they're never gonna ban more offense.
Right. Exactly. And to his credit, he could not have pulled off that run any better. So, we'll get to their matchup down the road here. Do you want to talk at all, or give an of the week to anything having to do with the Browns? Or the Texans.
No. I mean, the Browns didn't play last weekend, so I don't have anything to say. We had our off season began a couple weeks ago after the season ended.
Brutal.
Look. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like
rookie of the week, maybe rookie of the year, CJ Stroud. Let's hand that out.
Yeah, sure.
I said to you, I think no. Go ahead, Casen. You're the fan. I'm sorry.
I'm not taking anything away from CJ. It's just my thing is, I've felt very uneasy about this game from the beginning. I was told by everybody that I was dumb for being nervous about this game, and I was like, I don't know why.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I'm like, I see it 100%. What do you mean?
But it became very clear of what happened. Like the Texans were the only team that the Joe Flacco Browns had to play twice.
Mm.
And so they got to scout everything that happened with Joe Flacco the first time. For reference, they were missing their two best pass rushers that whole game because Will Anderson didn't play and Grenard went out like on the very first play of that game.
Yeah.
So they missed like most of their defense that whole game. And CJ Stroud didn't play. And so they got to scout our entire offense for 3 weeks. We never saw the CJ Stroud Texans. So we didn't get to scout that.
True.
And because we went up against Case Keenum. And so I'm not saying this takes anything away from the Texans. I'm just saying that like it was a very unfortunate situation where we happened to play them 3 weeks ago and they played our full team and we didn't play their full team. And so they got healthy right before they got their pass rushers back.
Right.
And so they were the better team at that moment in time. And it is what it is.
Listen, dude, very little of the time in your life as an NFL fan or football fan do you see a rookie quarterback go out and shred statistically the best defense in the NFL. I mean,
I also think that was a little like not accurate. We were like the best defense in the NFL at home and like the 30th best defense on the road. Like we were allowing like 30 points on the road. Like I do not understand like why there was such a disparity between home games and road games, but it was clear that we were not a good defense.
That's the power of the dog pound. That's what I'd say. That's the power.
Yeah, it's whatever. I mean, like I'll take that over being 32nd in the league everywhere, but it's clear that some of the historic numbers that were advertised back in like October were just not true.
Yeah.
But either way, it was a fun time. It was fun. I'm glad we had December.
Hey,
I think
you and I can agree. Go Texans this weekend. Can we agree on that? Yes.
I'll agree with that. Yeah.
We'll get to that as well.
The only other thing to really mention is the Browns fired their offensive coordinator, tight ends coach, and running back coach.
Wow.
So yeah, interesting. Like it was weird. Like we woke up at like 6 a.m. Josina Anderson on Wednesday tweeted that out. Very weird. Seems to be that they're going to completely shift the offensive staff to be people that are catering towards Deshaun Watson and his style.
Okay.
Because to be in fairness, I think there were some other reasons for the other people, but Alex Van Pelt, great guy. I mean, he seems like a fun dude, but he was hired because he was the quarterback coach in Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers a few years ago, and he was hired to fix Baker. And so it didn't really translate to Deshaun Watson that well. And so everybody's assuming that they're going to try and get somebody that has more of a closer relationship or style or system match to what Deshaun Watson needs.
Makes sense.
I mean, weirdly enough, an interesting match would have been well, I don't think it would have worked out personally well, but it would have been funny for another coach who just moved to Ohio, Bill O'Brien. Funny, but so I think that's mostly what they're going to do. But
cool.
Either way, very weird. I mean, it is what it is. We made the playoffs, I guess. But
I guess I'll toss it. This wasn't on my list here, but I guess I'll toss a journeyman of the week, Baker Mayfield. I mean, he's still in the playoffs. Do I think I have no idea what his career ends up in Tampa Bay. Okay. I really don't know. I also don't make a whole lot out of their playoff victory. I mean, yes, they destroyed the Eagles, but the Eagles had so many issues down the stretch that I'd be more impressed if they somehow beat the Lions this weekend in Detroit. Then I'll be like, whoa, okay. This is this is a story. Like,
I think all they have to do is look okay against the Lions. I mean, they won like 9 games. So it's like, I don't think, and they like it. I don't think anybody really expected them to even be here.
No, but in a situation where you were kind of shipped out of town, and then Baker goes to Carolina, then he ends up on the Rams, right? And now it's the Buccaneers. Yeah. Like for him, like there were probably times when he really thought like, I'm never seeing the playoffs again. And not only did he see the playoffs, he won a playoff game again. So his career's not over by any stretch.
Yeah, I mean, Look, I mean, I don't have anything personally against him.
No.
I think that definitely he's learned what he needed to learn as to what sort of caused
Yeah.
the rift in Cleveland, and I think from what I've seen, he's definitely a much more um grown up version of himself.
I said to
And
someone,
and
oh, go ahead.
I mean, I mean, partially the Cleveland problem was his last year. He was injured like the whole year. I'm still very confused about what happened with that, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, I hope he gets a fat contract. I mean, he seems to like Tampa. Like they seem to have a decent roster, and they seem to like him. And I think that I mean, if they seem to look good against the Lions and they think, what's the point in changing what we've got rolling here? Give
Yeah,
him a fat contract. I mean, he's earned it.
he has earned it. Um, so that's pretty cool. I want to shift away. Wait, do you have another of the week?
Uh Let me double check here. We talked about
Because I'm going to shift
everything.
out of the
Oh,
NFL. Go ahead.
well, I do have lawsuit of the week, or potential lawsuit of the week, and that goes to anybody that attended the Dolphins Chiefs game. Because apparently like 30 people who were at that game were at the hospital getting treated for frostbite,
I have no
and
doubt.
there were a handful of players on both sides who had to get treated for frostbite. Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, we'll just mention this. Yeah, I mean the Chiefs won like we knew they would because the Dolphins can't play in the cold. Duh.
Good job, by the way, because we officially talk about every game. But you bring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I was gonna joke, and thank you for reminding me, Casen. I didn't write it down, but I have this is kind of dystopian of the week, and it's the fact that you could only watch that game if you had Peacock. Um, I didn't like that at all, and I also didn't really
Yeah.
know that until going into like the day, basically. Um, I don't love the fact I don't like seeing an
Well,
NFL
I
game
mean,
only on Peacock.
shocker, like that game had the lowest rating out of the whole weekend.
Oh,
Duh.
yeah, big shocker. I mean, it doesn't help that the game wasn't really good either, but at the same time, I do get it. You know, you want all of the potential Swifties to tune into the Chiefs playoff game and get them on Peacock. I mean, I see the
I
strategy, I just don't like it. That's all. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm more just kind of surprised that they like relegated Mahomes.
right?
Like, I think if that game would have been played, in a dome or in Miami, not in negative 20-degree weather, it probably would have been, on regular cable and had 50 million viewers
Yeah,
because that would have been a really good game.
yeah.
But because like even by, the previous Sunday when the schedule was announced, everybody knew the Dolphins had no chance because it was still going to be like at least freezing.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Like
yeah. I mean,
as soon as the Dolphins lost to the Bills, it was like, well, yeah, they're screwed.
one
Like,
of the one of the coldest games in the history of football sports ever. I mean,
yeah.
and in Kansas City, you're used to hearing headlines like that about like Green Bay, right? But Kansas City, I was like, well, Kansas City gets cold too. So, um, wanted to we'll stay in football. We got to talk about this, Casen. I have a retirement of the week, and no, it's not Jason Kelsey because apparently he may or may not be done yet. Um,
Well, the thing with that is it also, yeah, hey, uh journalism faux pas of the week goes to Adam Schefter. Once
mm,
again ruining a player's retirement.
oh
That
yeah, because he
everybody's assuming that he did actually tell the teammates that he was retiring, but because Adam Schefter like kind of stole it from him, because I thought the whole time he was going to tell everybody on New Heights
on New
and
Heights, yeah,
kind of have the thing where he announced it to the public, but he didn't get the chance to do that because like Adam Schefter once again had to cross a line that I don't think players should have to be like worried about happening. I mean,
I get that, but
I get it's a scoop business. I mean, from you as a, in your field, like I'm curious about your perspective because like is there not some sort of ethical guideline that that Schefter and uh Ian Rapport like all these people should be like respecting like boundaries, right?
I mean, you want my honest opinion? My brain immediately goes to how did he find out? Who inside leaked it? How did it
Yeah.
reach him? because scoops only happen because it got out of the building. And once it gets out of the building, you cannot control the narrative, is the best way I can put it, just from my line of work. And, and depending, like, there's no more spotlight than like on a team like the Eagles were in that situation after a playoff loss like that. So how did it make it to Schefter that fast? You know what I mean? Was it a player? Was it like where was the breakdown, or not the breakdown, but where was the communication picked up? You know what I mean? So I feel the same way about Brady's announcement. Like, somehow that made it to him. And we know that Schefter is almost always correct. Basically always correct. I mean, he's been off here and there, but he'll do corrections or follow-ups and stuff. But I don't necessarily put that on Schefter as much as I do how did it reach him. Is that fair?
I mean,
because
well,
Schefter's job
saying
is to tell the public that. That's what I mean.
But my point is like it's not. Like, I don't think his job is to scoop players on their own retirement announcement.
Well, and again, that's an ethical.
I get like firings and hirings, coaching interviews, GM interviews. I get the like roster part of it and the staff part of it.
Sure.
But when you're talking about a player, particularly a player like Tom Brady or Jason Kelce, like a no doubt first ballot Hall of Fame player who's going to want to announce something like that in his own time, why is that your job to scoop the guy?
Well, I'll ask you, not to get too in the weeds on this, but I'll ask you another question. How do you feel about when he put out Andrew Luck's retirement? Do you feel the same way?
Absolutely. Andrew Luck was on the sideline of a preseason game getting booed by his own fans.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen.
I'm glad you said that, because I have more of an issue with that than Tom Brady and what he did with Kelce.
It's all the same thing. Like somebody that has the information.
The timing.
Well, I'm saying
the timing though, that was going to immediately affect Andrew Luck's life regardless. But the fact that they were about to kick off a preseason game, I really think he got that news and sat on it as long as he could. But to be the one to actually break the story, he did it. But in that situation, high ground, ethical, whatever, like I just from a purely business perspective, that one I had more of an issue with than these other two, because it was going to immediately potentially put him in danger. Let's be real. That's when I think the stakes are a little bit raised. I mean, maybe we're just at odds on this, but that's just to me, these reporters are all trying to step over each other to break a story, right? How did it reach them? That's where the buck stops with me.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, so in other words, regardless how you feel about that, I mean, I'm with you as far as understanding, like, hey, maybe player announcements, but at the same time, other players have also said retirement stuff, but also there's also the whole thing of like, sometimes narratives just happen. Like that whole Tomlin's going to leave thing was a nothing burger. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Somebody just said that like he was considering taking time away, and he's like, no.
Like, Pittsburgh media was like, oh, I mean, like there's a similar thing going. We'll get to this. I keep saying we'll get to this because we're going to talk about the matchups this weekend. There's a similar thing going around about Andy Reid right now. We'll get to that when we get to it. But
yeah, I literally haven't even heard that.
I can't even remember what my of the week was going to be now. The one you said, oh, retirement of the week. I was going to say Nick Saban. That's where I was going with that. Departs Alabama, and they've already replaced him with Kalen DeBoer of Washington.
So we when the news broke that that the king of college football,
retired,
Saint Nick, king of Tuscaloosa, when that news broke, we kind of knew there was going to be this huge domino effect, because somebody like that retires in January. There's going to be a scramble, and there was a scramble. By the way, agent of the week goes to Jimmy Sexton. So the linchpin in this entire entire problem is a guy named Jimmy Sexton, who was talked about quite a lot. So Jimmy Sexton is an agent who represents pretty much every Power 5 head coach in college.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And including Nick Saban. And so clearly, I'm sure he had a very large heads up on the fact that Saban was going to retire.
Mm-hmm.
And he managed to plant every story in the book about all of his other coaches on his payroll that could be candidates. Like every single person that was an option for being a candidate was one of his guys, and they all got contract extensions, raises. He got everybody paid. like he was floating,
Including
I
himself.
yeah, he got, Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning signed a big extension raise. He's staying at Oregon. Mike Norvell, he signed a big raise, staying at Florida State. Like the
You
only
get an
guy,
extension, and you get an extension.
yeah, like I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy because it was like everybody was getting kind of floated out there, and then they all were like, "Just kidding, we're coming back." Like,
Listen,
it was also very funny
I've been,
because
go ahead.
it was very funny to see the entire student population of Alabama just chanting like "No Dabo" because
Oh
they
yeah.
did not want Dabo.
What's funny is I saw that clip as well, and I thought, well, Casen's gonna like that. That's literally, I said that out loud. I was like, well, Casen's gonna love this. Um, I do want to say something though. It's interesting because I'm one of these people who always thought that like Saban was a really genuine guy. And I think going out completely unceremoniously and just kind of saying, yeah, I'm done, and not making a big deal about it at all. He didn't go on some sort of fanfare season. He didn't announce it was going to be his last season and do a whole year.
Coach K.
Yes. I mean, neither here nor there to say what's the right way to do it or whatever. But at the same time, the fact that he just stepped away and retired. First of all, the other thing is, I think he's actually done. I don't think he's coming back to coaching.
No,
I think
yeah,
Saban. Why would you? I mean, in this year, arguably one of his more downtrodden teams, a bad year for him is one win away from getting the national championship. Like, okay, like would it have been nice to go out with a championship? I'm sure he'd be the first person to tell you that. The thing is, I've done that like 6 times or 7
yeah.
or whatever it was.
Mean, I don't know. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but the day after the announcement came out, he showed right back up to the facility in Alabama and sat down with Alabama alum Reese Davis for a little interview about the thought process, which was kind of cool. And I mean, he said kind of what everybody sort of thought was this was probably his hardest year coaching in a very long time.
Yeah.
That like the roster was not great, that they started very bad.
NIL, the whole team enters the transfer portal. I mean, when you're 70, whatever he is, 72 years old, I think, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
I just think that he's finally looking around. I mean, it takes a lot out of you. I don't care how great a coach you are. It is taking a lot out of a lot of people, a lot of coaches. It's just so tough. Like when you
I think he I think had to get a lot more hands-on than he's been in a very long time.
Right.
And he just can't do that. And he was with seeing, where the NIL stuff was going, he was just like, I don't want to have to deal with, finding out how to get the money to pay to keep my own guys.
Yeah.
So I managed to turn the ship around in October and November, and we still beat Georgia in Atlanta. We still made the Rose Bowl and almost won. And I think that. I mean, to me, this is probably one of the more impressive coaching years I've ever seen from Nick Saban.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Hands
I mean,
down.
it's easy to win a national championship when your entire starting roster is 5 stars. Like, but when you have to like build back the team from losing to Texas at home, like, and like that's hard to do.
Yeah,
I mean, they managed to figure out how to fix Jalen Milroe after benching him.
I will also say this. Outside of his NFL years, Nick Saban is a coach that never in his college coaching career ever lost the locker room. Period. I don't care. I don't care if you're his biggest critic. That never happened. For Nick Saban, his teams were always as locked in on day 1, on day 50 as day 1. Day 100. It's like, so I don't know. One of the greats goes. Any thoughts on the DeBoer hire? I mean, let me preface this by saying I don't think Alabama recognizes that they hired to take someone who can. They're not in a situation where they necessarily need to build. I think they still needed to actually hire a program builder. I don't know how good DeBoer is at that. If you look at his track record,
so
I think it could be shaky, is all.
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Alabama, Tuscaloosa as a city, nobody wants to go there. The Alabama as an athletic department, they've kind of been struggling with NIL. They
Mm.
were able to keep the football program afloat because people would come there on a discount to play for Saban. Like I'll take a little bit less money because I want to get what Saban's gonna teach me. He's gonna get me into the league. We're gonna win a title. I'll take it. And without him, what is your draw?
Mm.
I mean, and so I think they're gonna have a lot of
I think they're going to struggle.
problems.
Yeah.
We've already seen half the roster hit the portal. I mean, including today, their star freshman quarterback is going to hit the portal, and people think he's coming to Columbus or USC. We'll see what happens to that. But Caleb Downs, he's going to Georgia or Ohio State. I mean, all of their star players are leaving because
Yeah.
they're like, we came here for Saban. He's not here. Goodbye.
100%. Yeah.
And so, yeah, and so when it comes to Kalen DeBoer, I like Kalen DeBoer. I mean, he's a good coach in the Pacific Northwest. Here's my thing. We just saw this with Brian Harsin at Auburn. Why did they not understand this? Like Brian Harsin was the hottest name in coaching at Boise State. He was dominating in the Mountain West. He was doing some pretty incredible recruiting in that region. And Auburn was like, sure, let's get him in here. He could not figure out the SEC for the life of him. He couldn't handle the fans. The fans ran him out of town by making up a scandal about him and somebody else on the staff. And so it's the SEC and the SEC fan bases do not like people from outside of the SEC region.
Yeah.
Like you saw that already. Like the message boards aren't thrilled. Like everybody in the Bama fan base was gunning for Dan Lanning because Dan Lanning had experience in Georgia. He has a track record to dealing with that. And even Mike Norvell, because Mike Norvell being at Florida State kind of recruits that region.
I'll be honest, a name that I really think that they probably wouldn't have gone for this, but Drinkwitz at Missouri, I think would have been a great name. I mean, he's proven to be a program builder. I mean, he's a laid back dude. I think he could go to Alabama and actually potentially really succeed. I mean,
I thought about that too. I mean, it also was kind of funny because not just I don't think Jimmy Sexton made up the stuff about his other clients.
No,
I think they were real. What it felt like in real time was it felt like I think his name's Greg Byrne, the AD at Alabama. What it felt like in real time was they were calling people and they were working through the list of candidates, and it got down to like option number 8.
Yeah.
Like they started at Lanning, he said no. Then they went to Lane. Lane said no. Like Lane Kiffin was, I think, the number 2 option.
Yeah.
And when he said no, the train went off the tracks because they were like,
wait. It's more like the Lane train stayed on the tracks. Haha.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they had no idea that Lane was going to say no to that offer.
I'll be honest with you. I just think that it's. I just think. I mean, seriously, congratulations and hats off to Kalen DeBoer because it's a huge job to say yes to. Like to be offered it is one thing. To actually want it after. I mean, you don't have hard shoes to fill. You have impossible shoes to fill. Like impossible. And we'll see how it goes. But we're on the same page with this.
Yeah. And just following up, like this is always a domino effect. So then that leaves an opening at Washington. And everybody assumed that maybe Ryan Grubbs, the offensive coordinator of Washington, was just going to get the job. He puts out a statement pretty quickly that says, it's like a novel of him just basically saying, "Love you Huskies, but I'm not going to be the ex-head coach." And so I don't know if maybe he asked and they said no, or if maybe
or if he's definitely going with him to Alabama.
well, he is now.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
he is now.
I mean, that's usually what happens.
I don't know. To me, that made it sound like he wanted it and they didn't give it to him. But either way, Washington goes on a little bit of a search, and they end up settling on Arizona head coach Jed Fish, who was a rising star. I mean, Arizona I mean, they were in the basement of the Pac-12,
Well, yeah,
and
now you got a situation where your Arizona is going to be the Big 12 next year, and you just got a Big 10 job. You know what I mean?
I
So
mean that exactly. I mean I
exactly,
mean
yeah.
they were moving to the Big 12, and now he's in
That's what
he's in one of the better jobs in the Big 10.
that's what makes this coaching carousel so wild. Just with all the change next year.
Yeah, and Jed Fish. I mean, good luck, dude, because there's nobody on that roster at Washington anymore. But I don't know if you heard it, but one of the players at Arizona recorded Jed Fish telling them that he was leaving,
Mm-hmm.
and like that was sounded like a brutal room to be in. Like the whole team was super mad because they had a really good roster and there were guys coming back because they thought they were going to really compete in the Big 12.
I didn't catch that, but without saying a whole lot on it, that room is always difficult. Um,
Yeah.
and that's
I
the
mean,
big,
I
you know
mean,
what I mean?
because you're sitting here, Martin Luther King Day, you don't think your coach is going to leave.
Right, and
I mean, middle of January, you're not worried about your coach leaving.
but the carousel doesn't stop, right? But when it takes a
Mhm.
while to find, when it takes a while for one school to find their guy, it takes a while for the other one to move on as well, right?
Yeah, and
It's all a domino
and
effect,
yeah,
like you said.
and,
Um,
and then that leaves the opening at Arizona, and Arizona ended up just hiring the head coach at San Jose, and
right. I
so it's
mean,
just kind of like,
all shifts around
and
it.
so that kind of leaves Arizona sort of holding the bag of like, I guess we'll hire the guy we can get. I mean, and
Hmm.
so good luck to him.
And now you got
I
San
mean,
Jose, who's like, okay, we need a coach now, and then and so on and so on and so on.
yeah, I
It's
mean,
just how it
and
goes.
yeah.
um,
So I mean, to me, I mean, I'm not saying this is any of Saban's fault. I mean, he had to retire at some
no,
point,
no.
and it's not his job to worry about it. But in all honesty, I think this makes all three of these programs largely worse.
Well, I mean that's
Like
inevitable when one person
I
retires. I
mean,
mean, not to mention when a coach leaves now, your whole team's going away as well. Maybe not always with him, but that's just the
yeah,
reality of the sport now. I want to move on just because I have two more of the weeks I want to get to.
yep.
The other one is a parting of ways of the week goes to Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. Literally the day after Saban, this
Hmm.
news dropped. And then the press conference happened, and it was incredibly low key. They both spoke. Whole thing was open and shut in like 5 minutes. Um,
And then they hired Gerard Mayo as the next head coach of the Patriots pretty quickly.
yeah,
Um, there was some conversation over if it was going to be Vrabel, but apparently they had written into Gerard Mayo's contract that he was going to be the next head coach, and
which hey,
that was it.
another minority coach in the NFL. Hats off to the Patriots. I really gotta tip my
Yeah,
cap to
I
that. That
mean,
was cool to see.
the locker room seems to like him. He seems to be an interesting guy. I mean, I think that I saw some of his introductory press conference or a little bit of what he had to say,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like he's a lot more of an interesting conversationalist than Bill ever was. And so I'm very curious to see where the Patriots sort of like where that dynamic takes the team.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
now I'll say this. Now it's all really gone. Like the whole remnants of
yeah,
that whole era of the dynasty is now completely done. Um, it's
yeah.
going to
I
be a
mean,
very different
he
team now.
yeah, Gerard Mayo, I mean, played there, he coached there. He's a Belichick disciple for sure, but it feels like he's going to completely overhaul that staff.
Yeah, I mean,
Like it feels
yeah,
like, being a young guy, he's not going to want Josh McDaniel as his OC, I don't think.
no,
Like, no chance.
no, he's going to build a coaching tree of his own, as he should.
Yeah.
I wanted to also throw this out there in the same vein. I guess Belichick has had a pair of conversations with the Falcons already, which
It sounds like he went back down there today
mhm,
for a dinner with Arthur Blank, and it sounds like it is happening.
yeah, sounds so we're going to see Belichick on the sideline for the Falcons. That kind of made me raise my eyebrows at first, and then I thought about it for a little bit. That division is not good. You got to go get a quarterback, but the Falcons actually have a lot of stuff in place
I
at every other spot,
the
and I'm like, it actually makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. I mean,
They play in a
they
dome,
they
like
have they have the assets to get a quarterback. Like
yeah,
they can trade for. I've seen trade for Fields. I've seen go sign Kirk Cousins. They have options to fix that, but they're fairly talented everywhere else. The division is very winnable.
oh yeah,
So It's not a bad gig, and I'm sure. I mean, like I just feel bad for Arthur Blank, who we watched that Super Bowl together, and we were talking about just how painful that was to see him.
He's hiring. I
He's
just realized that he's hiring the guy who did that to him.
Yes, yes, like that had to have been very difficult for him to go and like kneel at the feet of Bill and
He
be like, "Come save my franchise,"
Yeah, I wonder how
after
that
what you did
conversation
to
went.
me.
I'm sorry about that Super Bowl. Probably. I mean, I will also say one other thing. I want to say something really positive. Um, I'll tell you the appearance that changed my opinion about Belichick in terms of his conversationalism when he was on College Game Day for the Army Navy game this year.
Yeah,
He was awesome on that, and I don't care how you feel about the Patriots or Belichick. He was incredible, and I think to myself, got it. So he just kind of doesn't like dealing with the media, and he's monotone and stuff. He's more animated than he seems. Like,
I think definitely during the Brady years when it was like Super Bowl or bust, he was that way. But I think
yeah,
in the last few years, when it was kind of very abundantly clear they weren't going to do anything ever again with him as the coach and with like nobody on the roster, he definitely I think has lightened up a little bit more. And we'll see what his dynamics like in Atlanta. I mean, I'm really curious how that goes. But
dude,
I
it's gonna.
think I think
Mm,
I think it's just he's chasing Chuck Noll's record.
or
Um,
no, is it or is it Shula? I was trying to
or
find
sorry, yeah, sorry. Don Shula, yeah,
like he'll
sorry.
be there for 2 years, and if he
Don
can get,
Shula's,
he
yeah.
needs like 15 more wins. Like yeah,
I think I think it might be closer to 20, but yeah,
yeah, I think you're
he's
right.
a couple years away from Don Shula's record. And that's really the only thing that matters to him right now.
Yeah. Well,
I think he did just
gonna
never
be
mind.
it's gonna be very weird to it's gonna be very weird to see him wearing a different team's cutoff hoodie. I'm looking at it right now. Don Shula's at 347, Belichick's at 333. So um the for some
13
what's up?
or
Go ahead.
wait, three
Do the
14.
do the math. Yeah. So I was off by one or two. Just for some reference here, in the top 10, the only other guy still coaching, like that's even on the list, and he's nowhere close, but it's even on the list, is Andy Reid with 281.
Yeah.
He's number
Yeah.
4. George Hallis at 324. Bill at 2, and Don Shula at 1. So one of the goats too, Don Shula. Um,
Yeah.
I want to shift gears as well. I have one last of the week, and I was going back and forth all kind of week about like what I should call it, but I ultimately come down to just sad situation of the week, and there's a reason I wore this hat today. Uh, Gonna talk about the situation with the Chicago Bulls, because if you're not familiar with the story, I'll just make it very brief. The Bulls kind of very last minutely announced that they were going to start a Ring of Honor, where they, if you're not familiar, invite back all the greatest execs, coaches, players, who've helped the organization out. It's something the Steelers even did a few years ago. They started something, it didn't call it the Ring of Honor, but it's like the Hall of Honor or something. Anyway, they were going to honor, first and foremost, kind of an odd situation as an organization, because Jordan wasn't there, Pippen wasn't there, and Dennis Rodman wasn't there, all for various reasons. I will say, good luck ever getting the three of those guys back under the same roof in any context. But anyway, that's besides the point. For various
Well,
reasons.
I think I saw somebody suggest just invite Marcus and Larsa. Have them
Yeah,
represent.
have them represent it. Yeah. So anyway, uh, anyway, but the reason it really made headlines is because there was the moment where Jerry Krause is Jerry Krause, the late Jerry Krause, is who, if you don't know who that is the GM who built the whole Bulls dynasty. He is the guy who did that. Made a lot of those draft picks, those moves, and won 6 titles. All 6 were because of him, among other him and Phil Jackson, and some really great players. Including at least who is my goat.
He hired Phil, didn't he?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
And regardless of what it was and everything, obviously they showed him. He was really, really heavily booed, and then they showed, he was represented by his widow Thelma Krause, and the booze, and she was crying, and it did not look like it looked like she was crying because of the booing. That is what happened. Okay, just trying to lay it out there. Um, there's a lot that goes through your head about a story like this, but there's one thing I've continued to think about this, and this is all kind of Michael Jordan's fault for the Last Dance and the way. I mean, there are times in the Last Dance. Listen, I've seen the Last Dance. I didn't. My relationship with that thing is, yeah, I'm a Bulls fan, but I'm a Bulls fan because of the Derrick Rose era. I wasn't like I was too young to remember. I was born in '94. I was too young to really remember the Bulls in the Jordan era, right?
Mhm.
Same for you, Casen, being a few years younger, and um, I like it. I didn't love it. Like it's fine for what it is. That's how I kind of feel about the Last Dance. I mean, uh, we know the story, especially for someone who didn't like live through it. It was cool to like get context of everything that was happening. But Jerry Krause is portrayed like the villain of that whole story, and I'm like, this is not fair. I remember thinking that at the time. I was like, especially also because he had passed away. It would have been different if he was also speaking his side. I always just kind of felt not comfortable about that whole thing of how he was being talked about, and it's like, you guys are kind of, you know, you guys are doing some slandering things here. Like you guys are doing some lawsuit potential,
Yeah.
saying some stuff here, just with the no involvement and stuff.
It's
And
it, it's it yeah, it was definitely like, oh,
he
let's
does,
just pile
yeah.
on the guy who can't defend himself.
Yes,
Like,
and so that's how I'm over here. I'm like, basically like you said to me about this. Read the room, Bulls, but also fans. Why are we booing? Why are we booing this man? Like, why? I mean, I don't know. That's my whole take on it. It's sad. It's a sad situation of the week, and
mhm.
it's just a bad look for everyone involved. Like the Bulls, the guys for not being there. It's a bad look for everyone involved except the Krause family. They're the ones who should absolutely be like, you know what, justifiably unhappy. So, any thoughts? You
Yeah,
can't.
I mean, I think that for one, I think that a lot of the blame, at least for what happened, I mean, obviously the blame for what happened goes on the people who were booing, but
Yeah,
I think that the blame for the situation being able to take place falls at Jerry Reinsdorf. He knew that was going to happen. Of course, like how did everybody knows
he may
that
not
half
have
the
though.
city of Chicago.
He may not have though. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
he's kind of.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I think that
he seems out of touch. I'm just saying. He seemed
I
out of
do
touch in the
think
Last Dance. Anyway,
I do think to an extent, um, I don't know for sure if the people would have booed if they knew Thelma was there,
I agree.
because it looked like they started booing as soon as his face showed up on the jumbotron,
Right.
and then they showed her, and like I don't think that like they realized that she would have been there, that she was there,
Yeah.
and so I think maybe changing that a little bit.
I
I don't
honestly,
know.
I
I
think it.
mean,
I think it could have worked if you had scripted it a little different, or just don't show her at all in the jumbotron. Um,
I to me, I mean, I don't know.
it's just one of those things where it absolutely could have and should have been handled better, as you said this past week.
I mean, I think maybe the better option would have been, yeah, to just not have her there.
Yeah. Not,
Like,
or
I
like
mean,
have her in the building, but maybe not have her on the court or something. I don't know. I don't know the
yeah.
best. I don't know if there is a totally correct way to do this, but regardless, that was it. I don't want to really rehash it any more than that. Do you have any more of the week's Casen? Oh, I actually do have one more kind of crazy one. This is from today, but I want to ask if you have one.
No, no, I did not.
Okay, this is news that's like news as of I think today slash yesterday. But my perseverance of the week goes to the TCU women's basketball team. Have you heard of this story?
Ooh, no.
So if our listeners aren't familiar, so they are having, this is interesting. They're having open tryouts for people for women on campus to join the women's basketball team for the remainder of the year. You might be asking why that is. Due to kind of, I guess, a lack of depth and some serious injuries to some key players and a flu that's kind of gone through the rest of the team, they had to cancel 2 games because they literally could not like put a team on the floor.
Oh
Um,
my God.
yeah, they only had something like 5 or 6 healthy players, and you can't play a full game like with just without an actual rotation. And so, and you like, I'm saying this in a very serious context because I feel like someone might read that headline and like try to make a joke out of it. This is no joke. Like they are doing this out of necessity. And I want to just also put it out there. This team started 14-0. Okay, they've lost 4 in a row. They are a 14-4 team doing the absolute best they can to salvage the year. And I honestly want to give a little bit of a hats off to that department for saying, you know what, maybe, hey, and TCU's got a big enough student base. I think it's going to work. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think it's going to work. I think that they're going to be able to say,
Wow.
pick a few maybe club players or a few things like that and make it happen. But how about that? Check
That's
that out on your own,
crazy.
listeners. I bet shout out
That's crazy.
TCU Horned Frog women's basketball. That's awesome. Like I'm clapping my hands. Like,
Wow.
isn't that crazy? That's
Yeah.
news as
Yeah.
of today. I
Wow.
think people are like going to be like, "Wow, that's it." Might be a bigger story by tomorrow morning, by Saturday when you hear this. But yeah,
Oh, I one of the just little bit of news that broke basically right before we started recording. The Las Vegas Raiders are hiring Antonio Pierce to be their next head coach,
hire of
who
the
was the
week,
interim.
I think.
Uh, and so that's done. Interesting dynamic. I mean, the players were basically openly lobbying for him to get the job, especially after they were doing the same thing last time with interim coach Rich Bisaccia, and Mark Davis didn't listen that time, but he
Yeah,
did this time. Interesting thing that apparently is already being reported is that um Antonio Pierce brought in Marvin Lewis to be sort of a consultant for him on how to be a head coach after he got the interim job and throughout
interesting.
the season. And so it sounds like he's going to keep Marvin Lewis on staff as some sort of, I assistant coach type of position. So
Could be
interesting sort of thing there.
could be
Marvin
a
Lewis,
little bit of a
former
redemption arc here.
Bengals
I
coach.
say that, but Marvin Lewis is one of the best coaches in the history of the Bengals.
Well, it's kind of crazy because like he's been kind of nowhere. Like I mean,
Yeah.
after he got fired from the Bengals, he's just been kind of floating around.
Well, I also think he kind of got unfairly piled on as the guy who could get to the playoffs, but like couldn't ever win a game. Um,
Yeah.
how many of you guys out there can't make the playoffs? I'm sorry. So I don't know. I think he kind of unfairly, but maybe he didn't want the spotlight. You know, he was known for that for a long time. But that's probably the greatest. That's probably the best Raiders hire in a long time. That head coach, at least on paper. Hopefully, he can keep it rolling in the next year.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, great stuff. Do you want? Yeah, go
And
ahead.
and I mean the Falcons also interviewed Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn today. So we'll see. I mean, I it seems like it's moving towards Bill in Atlanta, but they're still interviewing some of the people, and so nothing's official yet. But
Sure.
um,
And you got to
you
satisfy
know,
the Rooney Rule. So
yeah,
you
yeah.
do. Do you want to talk about these games this coming weekend?
Yes, let's get into that. We've talked a lot and we've got plenty more to talk about.
Yeah. So we talked a lot. Got some more to talk about coming up on the hour. We've got, and we're gonna predict them too. Uh, Divisional round. I was right in front of me. I've made a mess of it.
For the first divisional round game, which if you're listening to this when it comes out on Saturday, today at 4:30,
Mm-hmm.
we've got Texans at Ravens. So that's the Texans in Baltimore. Whew, oh boy, oh boy.
You don't. We're not
Um,
gonna play guess the line because I looked him up earlier.
okay,
We're not gonna play guess
yeah.
the line because I think the Ravens are favored by 9.5 points. That's understandable. Um, I thought this would have been like at least 10. So
I think that here's my hot take.
Mhm.
If this game was in a dome, Texans win. But
Texans win
you
outright. He says
I think that's potential. That could be that could
they looked
happen.
so good against the Browns. I mean, they
I
did.
mean, it's just I think you take that team, put them outside. Apparently, I mean, I know the weather here and I know the weather in DC, so it's going to be snowy, cold. It's going to be,
It's going to be in Baltimore in the
it's
winter. All right.
yeah, it's going to be a running game type of day probably. And that's Baltimore's thing. So yeah, I think the Ravens going to win pretty easily.
I think the Ravens win this too. I will give the Texans credit and say they hang around longer than people think.
Well, also something that I've heard pointed out is the Ravens, you know, killed the Niners, killed the Dolphins, and where did the Texans offensive coordinator come from? The
mm,
49ers. So,
interesting.
I mean, the
The Texans
what is it?
head coach, you mean?
And the offensive coordinator.
Oh, both. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Ryan's
So
okay.
it's Bobby Slowick was on staff there and D'Amico brought him. But
Awesome.
Um, it's just for whatever reason, was it Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator for the Ravens, just really like he's one of the very few people who knows how to just annihilate that Shanahan system. Like
It's true.
like he's been very good at being able to counter that.
I'm also just going to go ahead and throw this out here. We have yet to see Lamar Jackson really look good in the playoffs. We have yet to really see that. They always fall apart. They
Yeah,
always just
yeah,
don't quite make it. They don't quite measure up. He's won, I think, a couple of playoff games, but I mean, they like there was the year they won a
yeah.
playoff game and then they hit the absolute buzzsaw that was the Titans. At
Hmm.
home, the Titans just like beat them. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like what I am saying on an unbiased note. Lamar can do a lot for his own legacy if he can actually get like will this Ravens team do a Super Bowl appearance. But
Yeah, I mean, there's always the concern. I mean, the Ravens and the Niners, who we'll talk about later, but they haven't played in 2 weeks,
yeah,
and so there's always questions about that over how they come out, after not playing last week. But if they come out, like they looked against, Miami, uh, then yeah, I mean, I think that they should have no problem getting past Houston.
so I got the Ravens, you got the Ravens in a game that I don't know. I say the Ravens win by they probably cover, to be honest. Moving
Oh
on.
yeah. Well, Lamar hasn't even played in 3 weeks because he didn't play against the Steelers
Right.
last week.
Right. That's right.
So
So
that does something. I wouldn't be surprised if they come out looking pretty bad, but
flat.
yeah, if they don't come out flat, they're gonna roll. But just keep an eye. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be
Hey,
surprised.
hey, this is why that's why they play the game, right? The Berman, it's why they do it, right? 8:15 that evening, Saturday tonight, I should say, 8:15 Saturday night. Packers, 49ers, also 9.5 point favorites. The Niners. Thoughts?
Yeah. Thanks for coming out, Packers. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, this is another thing where it's just kind of like LaFleur. I mean, it's a master and apprentice kind of thing. Like Kyle knows how to beat LaFleur, and the Packers definitely don't have the roster to compete. Like on paper, the Packers should not have beaten the Cowboys. Like they just don't have that good of a
I'm
roster.
gonna text you
And
tonight,
so,
Saturday night, when it's 30-0 Packers at halftime, and be like, "Oh my goodness, what is happening?"
I mean, if that happens again, like okay, Super Bowl goes to Green Bay. Like it's
If
just
that actually happens, I think the Lions fans should be sitting there saying, "Okay, this is bad. This is really bad."
yeah, because then that means that Green Bay is going to win the NFC Championship game in
Yeah,
Detroit.
can
Like,
you
well,
imagine the Packers win and the Packers win and the Lions win and you're one thing away, and of course the team on the other side in the NFC Championship game is the green and gold. Oh man,
that would be the worst nightmare
that
for
would be
Lions
the
fans.
Cleveland Browns hosting the AFC Championship game, and across the field is the smiling face of Mike Tomlin and the steel curtain. It would be that. I mean, it would be like
Yeah,
this
yeah.
team, the bane of this team. I'll tell you what, I can feel the anger already. That said, pulling it back. I think the Packers are a bit of a wagon after that Cowboys win, but the Niners have been so good all year, and I don't know. I don't think they lay an egg. Historically, the Niners usually beat the Packers, even the Aaron Rodgers days.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that continues. Niners win.
I think Kyle Shanahan is really good. If you give him an off week to game plan, he's had all week to game plan against LaFleur and Jordan Love, and I think that they'll be able to get this done because I think the Niners are on sort of a they're on a bit of a revenge tour to sort
Yeah.
of make up for what happened against the Eagles last year, and I think they're not going to be denied this one.
I also want to say if they can pull this off, man, shout out Brock Purdy. What a career so far, even Mr. Irrelevant to potential NFC champion again. So they'll at least have made the game again. And they were so banged up last year. I'm not even sitting here saying they couldn't have beaten the Eagles in Philly if they were fully healthy. So, because I remember even telling you or someone else at the time, I think we're getting a rematch of that other Super Bowl because we saw Niners
Yeah.
Chiefs in the in the Super Bowl already. Um, so we both got the Niners, and we both think they cover.
Yeah, yeah,
I think they
yeah.
win
I
by
think, I
10.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they both can.
Okay. Probably hard to say. Better games of the weekend. Sunday, 21st of January, 3 p.m. kickoff. Buccaneers at Lions, live from Ford Field and all that good stuff we said earlier. You got Detroit at 6.5-point favorites. What do you think?
I really want to I really want to sit here and say that I think the Lions are going to win, but I'm just going to say there's some things that make me cautious and nervous. I think the Lions win, but I think it'll be very close and very uneasy for most of that game.
I'm going to pick the
Because
Lions
look,
as well. I really thought you were going to pick the Buccaneers. I was going to be like, he's picking
I
against the Lions 2 weeks in a row.
I all I'm saying is that that Rams game was close, and they did not look particularly good for a lot of that game.
I will say, though,
And
that on paper, I think the Rams are better than the Buccaneers, like by a decent amount. Well, they were one win better, but I still think they were better. So
I mean, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the Buccaneers are hot. They just came out. I mean, the Eagles obviously sort of laid an egg, and it's hard to say. But I mean, you sort of inject that amount of confidence into a team that maybe doesn't have the talent.
mhm.
I mean, anything can happen. I mean, that's sort of the point. So, I mean, all I'm saying is Lions need to be ready, and they because it could be
It's going to be
not fun.
it's going to be dicey down the stretch there. Is what
Yeah,
Casen's saying.
yeah.
I think the Lions win by a field goal. I
I
got the
think
Lions in
I
this
I
one.
think I think Baker and Jared easily combined for 600 yards. I think this is going to be this is going to be a shootout of all shootouts.
Well, the Ram. Well, you were completely correct last week about Rams Lions. It was a little bit of a shootout. Now it got defensive in the second half. It
It
started
was
as a
in the first
shootout though.
half. Yeah,
I mean, they were. I
yeah.
mean, it was like the first half. I mean, it was a couple of gunslingers going at it, like absolutely, like wow, this is cool. I think this one could have more of that effect. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
And then the behemoth that night on Sunday night. Of course, we
I
mean
guess
again. Yeah,
clarify, I'll say Detroit, but Buccaneers cover.
that's good. Okay, that's a good. That's solid. I guess that's what
So
I predicted as well. So,
yeah,
um, oh yeah, 6:30 p.m. On Sunday night, Chiefs at Bills. Mahomes and Allen. One of you is not continuing the season, and it's in the divisional round again. Oh my goodness gracious! Here we go. Thoughts? That's good. That's the game of the weekend, obviously.
I mean, I mean, it's the first playoff. I mean, it's the first real road test that Mahomes has ever had to face.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's in Buffalo. I mean,
Yep.
that's it. The it's yeah, Buffalo 2.5.
This
I
it's
r- I r-
it's just hang on
I
real quick. Time out. It is a story that has everything. It's got legacies on the line. It's got famous football players with famous girlfriends. It's got snow that you can't see above. It's got people throwing it in the air. It's got $20 to come out help us empty the stadium because somehow it snows too much to where we can't even play football, to where we have to postpone the game. We didn't even do that. It's got it'll have, it's got, and amazingly, it's the new duel. It's the new Brady Manning. It's Allen and
yeah.
Mahomes and Allen. I mean, my goodness, it's but the cool thing is both cold weather locations. I know, but it's in Buffalo this time. It's in Buffalo this time. I just needed to put all the stage I possibly could set up there, dude. This is yeah, this is going to be the most watched game of the weekend. No
Yeah.
question about
You
it's coming.
know,
It's coming on at the Super Bowl time too on a Sunday, 6:30 p.m. because the NFL are like, yeah, we know what we're doing. So anyway, it's got the Bills who have never won the Super Bowl.
I could explain a lot of things, but I think I'll just go ahead and say Buffalo Bills.
I thought you were going to say circle the wagons.
Yeah. Circle the wagons.
We should probably say the Bills are favored by 2.5. I guarantee you that if this was in Kansas City, that would be the other way.
Yes, yes.
Guarantee you.
And I would say I probably would think the Chiefs would win if it was in Kansas City, but in Buffalo, I something about this Bills team just I mean, I didn't love how they kind of played down to the Steelers, but because it's like it not to discount the Steelers, but
I was
it
gonna
just
say
felt
that's them some fighting
it
words. What do
felt
you mean?
it felt like
What
they
do you
didn't
mean played down to the Steelers? Excuse me?
it felt like they did not put forth their A effort until they realized they had to or they were going to lose the game.
Well, again, Josh
Like,
Allen cheated, but we're gonna
well,
put
yeah,
my. I'm
yeah.
kidding. I'm kidding. You in all seriousness, you know what this Bills team really makes me feel like, and I'm serious. Let me just do the math here. 3, 4. They have not lost in like 7 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
that Eagles loss triggered something in this team to where they went to Kansas City and won. They played Dallas at home, destroyed them. They razor thin, but they beat the Chargers, beat New England, beat Miami, and they beat the Steelers. They remind me of the '05 Steelers right now. That team became a wagon the second they knew they couldn't lose another game, and they literally didn't lose the rest of the year. I think this Bills team is could be that team, which is why I'm going to say they win this game, but I am going to say it is going to be a battle to the bitter end.
Yeah. I mean,
To the bitter end. Look for this to go into overtime.
This feels like a year that is destined for the Bills. I mean, with all the drama and all the stuff that we were talking about
The
3
bickering
months ago,
Bills.
and I mean,
3 months
McDermott
ago,
had
we've
a
talked about this every week. What do you mean?
I mean mostly the and Dorsey stuff.
They are battling with you on the mind, Casen. They are
Yeah,
saying that Casen-short.
they
I'll tell you
they
what.
have they have my picture up in the locker room on the on
They've
on the
got your
bulletin
face.
board.
They got your face cut out on all their tackling dummies in practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Sean McDermott was sitting down to write his manifesto, well, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The he had me in mind of who to get revenge on.
Absolutely. Yeah, he did. The man who the man on that one podcast who said our Super Bowl window is closed. We're gonna do it specifically because of him. On a happy note, the people in upstate New York, there's not a more deserving fan base, among the ones who haven't won it in the NFL. So I got the Bills, but man, it's gonna be cold. It's gonna be the stage is perfect. It really is. And the Bills are at home, Um, I will say, based on that, like we're not going to speculate because the next week is next week, but it will be interesting though if they won. The Bills would have in what we predicted happened. They would have to go on the road to Baltimore, and that matchup intrigues me. But that may not happen, so I'm not going to speculate yet.
Yeah,
that may not happen.
Yeah, I mean, I also, for the record, I mean, I cannot be held to anything I said about those Bills because those Bills was a completely different team. I mean, these Bills have Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator.
That's true.
And he seemingly has fixed the offense. So there was a material change that altered the state of the roster and altered the chemistry of the team. And I think that I can't be held accountable to anything I said.
It's always kind of brutal when you see a situation where it's like Steelers and Bills this year, where it's like they fire that one guy and immediately get really better. It's like, oh no, kind of brutal for that dude.
Yeah.
Resume wise, it's like, oh man. But anyway, heads up, Ken Dorsey. Keep your head up, sir. Anyway,
he's a good quarterback coach, just not a good play caller.
Maybe not the play caller. Anyway, that's our predictions. Let us know yours. Enjoy the weekend. That's for sure. I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, there's some cool quarterbacks left. Beyond just the two main ones, because one of them is going out this weekend. One of them is done this weekend.
I mean, we're in for. I mean, this has been a good playoff so far. I mean, generally speaking, and I think we're in for some good games this weekend, and seemingly a really good championship Sunday.
Absolutely, it's going to be lit. So that being said, are we done with the playoffs? Do you want to shift?
I think so. I think so.
We're deep into the podcast now. We're going to shift to Echo. I said I was going to try to watch the whole show for this week. I only got one episode in. I apologize to everybody.
That's
Casen,
fine. I mean, we can talk about it. We can hold off and talk about it later. It's up to you.
yeah, no, let's talk about at least the first episode, the opening, because I think it's worth. I'm gonna go ahead and say spoiler alert for Echo, just because I know some people listen / watch mainly just for the sports content and vice versa. Echo, the new Marvel series that dropped all at once. It's a 5-part miniseries on Disney Plus right now. You can go check it out. I watched the first episode. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Did you watch the whole show? I'm assuming, Casen.
I did. I did.
Okay. I am gonna make a loose promise to do so by our next show, so we can talk about the full series. I will say that the grit is there. The intrigue of the story. I thought the writing of the episode was good to kind of show us her whole life up to they showed Maya's like upbringing. They showed like kind of the tragic backstory. They showed how she ended up from Oklahoma um to New York. Side note, I liked really seeing the Native American side of the MCU. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was really well done. Um, they and it looks like we're going to see more of that, which is cool. The what is the other thing I wanted to say? I liked that we got a little bit of Matt Murdock in his prime, kind of showing what was going on during actual Daredevil show, which is all canon now. All of the Netflix Marvel stuff is all canon now, and it's all going to be on Disney Plus. So you can go check it out, especially Daredevil. Go check that out. But yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I wanted to also say there was one thing they did as a creative choice, which I'm not really like pumped that they chose to do, Casen, and it was when they did a montage of like what's going to happen in the season at the end of the episode. I got to the point where I was like skipping past that. I was like, I don't want to see this stuff. Like they said this season on Echo, and then they showed like a bunch of real plot stuff, and I'm like, whoa, and I like quickly.
I think they only did that because the whole thing dropped at the same time, and so they were. I think that was their way of just saying, keep binging, just watch the rest of it.
Like, yeah. Well,
I also did that because I ended up just binging all of it in a day. I just ended up binging it like
cool.
I think it was Saturday or whatever. But yeah,
I'm definitely gonna watch probably 2 more episodes like tonight.
Yeah,
it's Friday night, anyway.
For reference, I thought it was super cool how they did the Native American stuff. I thought that for anybody who doesn't know, the actress who plays Maya Alako Cox,
yep,
she is Menominee, I think. I'm not sure how to say that, but she's from a tribe in Wisconsin. And
she's also deaf, right? She's born
deaf.
Yeah.
And Sydney Freeland, the director who directed the whole series, is Navajo. And so it was
That's
both.
fantastic.
It was very important to both of them that neither one of them are Choctaw or have any Choctaw ties, but it was very important for them to work with the Choctaw Nation to get things correct. And they from my understanding, like the Choctaw website has a whole Echo page.
That's
and
incredible.
they worked with them to make sure everything was done very tastefully and accurately. And
I love that.
And I think credit to them for doing it the right way. And even the ASL stuff, I think it was done very well. I mean, we'll discuss more of that later, but there's a lot of really interesting parts with that.
It is necessary to go ahead and just say that the whole cast learned how to sign for this show, or at least the ones obviously interacting with Maya as a character. And like when I read up on her prior to the show dropping, I was like, well, yeah, you'd have to, like, literally to even speak to her on set. You know what I mean? Completely off camera. You know what I mean? Just the representation in this show is one of the strongest the MCU's had. Like I'm talking Miss Marvel levels of representation. Like it was.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe even better, honestly. Like
I think honestly, so without getting too into the weeds, I mean, we can talk more later about what it is, but
yep.
I guess just my general thoughts are this is I guess what they call Marvel Spotlight.
Yes.
And it kind of gives me a lot of vibes of X-Men Origins. It sort of feels that way where where the storytelling is done in a way in which like you're really trying to get down to the um the inner mind of the character. And for anybody that saw X-Men Origins Wolverine, I mean, we saw all that stuff going back to the murder of his girlfriend and all the stuff that where it was his
Mhm.
general motivating factors. um I think the scenes going back to the origin of Maya in
It gives her a lot of, like, even the first episode gives a lot of context for like Hawkeye. Like, there's even parts of me that
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
thank you for showing these scenes again, because there were parts of me that kind of want to go back and
yeah.
watch Maya's scenes again. So they went ahead and showed them in that first episode. I was sitting here, I'm one episode in. I think that Maya has the potential. I don't, you already know, so I won't speculate, and you don't have to, don't say anything. She seems like this show could be like a redemption arc for her, because she's really done a lot of not great things up to this point, leading at the beginning of the show. Um,
I I'm not I don't think I'm really spoiling anything, but
Careful.
I mean, I'm just gonna say, like, Sydney Freeland came out and said, like, she's not, like, good.
Oh, well then.
She's still, I mean,
Oh, well
it's
then.
not spoiling anything. Like, she's still like she's still,
She
a baddie.
an
Like, it
anti-Valen,
is.
yeah. I mean, it's sort of
I mean,
okay.
I think it was more of her saying, maybe slow the roll on standing her, because she's like like, because I think people, like, she was like, I know where this is going, and, like, maybe don't
don't do the
stand her.
don't do the Daenerys Targaryen thing from Game of Thrones, where everybody was naming their child Daenerys before you've
Yeah,
seen the whole
yeah,
show.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, okay, fair enough. I'm loving what I'm seeing so far. I'll tell you what, I knew from the literal title card with Marvel Studios just looked gritty, and I was like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
this is gonna be
I
good.
mean, you'll see it, but I mean, there are some violent scenes coming up that for you that you'll see, and I think there's this one shot, uh, and I think you'll know it when you see it, but it is, I thought it was done very well. Definitely Netflix vibes from the Netflix shows, and so
Dude,
it
I,
maybe not
I'm
quite as much,
I'm
but it's
hoping.
more that than She-Hulk.
Gotcha. Well, right. I am hoping that you're referring to, I mean, two of the greatest Marvel scenes, because they're canon now, of all time, are, no, three, because there's one per season. In all three seasons of Daredevil, there is a fight scene which looks like it's all one shot, and they're all incredible. With stunt people slash Charlie Cox, but um
Mhm.
and I'm waiting for Marvel's version of that. Like, oh, we know what we're doing. Trust me. I will also say one other thing. The way I always kind of saw Daredevil in those Marvel's Netflix shows, they weren't being violent for violence sake. The violence was real, like
Mhm.
to more orchestrate the danger that's at hand here. And so the first one episode in, I really thought that way. I'm like, look, this all looks like a realistic fight scene and what would go down. Like, it would be kind of messy. There would be people who'd be better at fighting than others. Daredevil drops in there, does his thing, and Matt Murdock's just the dude who you knock him down 10 times, he'll get up 11. Like, he's just one of those dudes.
Yeah.
That's his character.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
Daredevil's,
and we yeah, I mean, I thought
and
that first fight sequence
yes,
this episode was great.
and again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Vincent D'Onofrio is just the guy. I'm telling you,
Mhm.
I mean, he's one of those villains, and there's only really a real handful in all of movies or cinema or whatever. I'm talking like Heath Ledger's Joker, Thanos towards the end. There's others, but like the TV villains. There's many TV villains. Whenever this villain or character is on screen, I, as the viewer, do not feel safe, because I have no idea. Like, it just feels like everyone's in danger. Everyone is endangered by this character being there. From the first episode of the first Daredevil show, I thought Vincent D'Onofrio is a perfect Wilson Fisk. I mean, he's so scary
Mm.
and he's huge, so that helps.
Yeah.
Um, this is gonna make me sound dumb. I had no idea that in the movie Full Metal Jacket, Vincent D'Onofrio plays a young Vincent D'Onofrio plays the Marine Dover pilot who goes insane. I was like, oh, because I was looking through his filmography today, and I was like, wow, there's some great stuff here. Makes perfect sense. Yeah, that's totally him.
Yeah.
Just movies that came out, and it's like, Man, he's been a great actor his whole life. Got it. But yeah, I think this is going to be good. I'm looking forward to hearing your full thoughts about it next week, dude.
Yeah, yeah. We'll go much more into detail then.
It's going to be great. That's the show. That's the show, y'all. Thanks. Thanks for hanging out with us on a weekend. Whenever you hear this, we really appreciate it. We really wanted to make this show more of one to kind of catch up with the stuff we didn't get to talk about last week. Our show might kind of move around during the week. It's just kind of how things go with Casen and I nowadays, but we really appreciate everybody listening. Bro, any thoughts?
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I just I subscribe to our feed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to get them updated whenever they come out, because it's just kind of here and there, or subscribe to the YouTube. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you want to see our reactions to the
if you want to see it,
ridiculous things he and I say to each other.
Yeah. So like Kellan said, it no locked date for right now, as just kind of things are fluid, but
we really try to shoot for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in that window. This was one of the rare situations where we're recording this or getting it on the weekend. Like the beginning. Like the beginning when we a year ago when we were doing this every Sunday. Sunday or Monday or whatever. But yeah. So enjoy your football weekend starting today whenever you hear this. And yeah. This is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And we'll see you as always at the next stop.